Okay, my CPs, we're back on lesson 5. We're in Unit 4. Unit 4. So what we're going to be doing today is solving quadratic equations by factoring. Remember, the term quadratic means exponent of 2. Highest degree is 2, in other words. So don't worry about the warm-ups. That would be if I were to see you in class. So steps of factoring. So notice we have equations here. We are actually finding out what x is when we have an equal sign. So steps to finding out what x is. We have to make sure that the equation is set equal to 0. Step 2, once it's set equal to 0, we're going to factor. Remember, your factors always look for a GCF first. Then you can look for other things such as easy trinomial, difference of squares, or hard trinomial. Then once we factor, the additional thing we're doing here, once we factor is we are going to, in step 3, find out what the x's are. X or x is. We can have up to 2 answers in each problem. So I'll show you how to do that. We're going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So example 1, solve by factoring. Please make sure that you guys are pausing the video frequently to take notes down. And also make sure you're rewinding if you miss something. So example number 1a. The first thing we need to do, this is not set equal to 0. So we need to subtract 9x. Now notice here, notice my placement of the 9x. I had to carefully wedge it between the x squared and the constant 18. When you have to have your things in standard form, meaning in order, where you go from x squared, then the x term, then the constant term. So from there, I am looking to factor now. So again, I always look for GCF first, which I do not notice one here. So what kind of factoring is this? Well, it's a trinomial, and there's nothing in front of the x squared. So that's what I refer to as an easy trinomial. So remember the rules here. It's 2 binomials. The signs here, C is a plus and B is a minus. That's minus, minus. You must memorize your sign rules. You should have them memorized by now. If you don't have them memorized, you need to pause this and go back and look at your old notes for sign rules. Next, the rule is for your 2 numbers in parentheses. You need to carefully choose 2 numbers that multiply to 18 and add up to get 9. Those 2 numbers are 3 and 6. Now, the new additional step is we need to find out what x is now. So what we need to do is take each factor and set it equal to 0 and solve. So my first factor is x minus 3. I set it equal to 0, and I can easily see that x must be 3. So there's one of my answers. Now for your other factor, x minus 6 is called a factor. We need to set that equal to 0. That x has to be 6. So there's your other answer. Letter B, the first thing I notice is it is not equal to 0. So I need to add 4. Again, be careful with your placement. The 4 is a constant, so that comes third. It needs to be in the x squared, then x, then constant. All right, so for factoring, don't be in a rush. This is a lot of people see the 2 there in front of the x squared and they think it's a hard trinomial. Remember, look for GCF first. You actually have a GCF here. It's 2. This stylus is garbage. Okay, so when you have a 2 there that's factored out, it doesn't have an x with it, so it's actually not going to affect our problem, so we can cross it out. If you had pulled out an x, you got to leave the x there. So like if your GCF was 2x, don't get rid of the x. But since it's just a 2, you can get rid of it. So now we actually have another easy trinomial. Signs are pretty easy, plus, plus. And we got some, this is like a no-brainer. Two numbers that multiply 2 that add up to 3. Well, you only have one option, 1 and 2. 1 times 2. Okay, so now that it's factored, I can go ahead and set each factor equal to 0 and solve. That would be -1. And then the other one, x plus 2 equal to 0. That subtract 2, and you get -2. Okay, letter C is set equal to 0. What kind of factoring do I have here? Oh, I have a GCF right away. So 2 and 4 would make 2, and they both have x's, so it's going to be 2x. Remember the rule for a GCF with x's, you choose the smallest exponent. So between x squared and x, you're pulling out an x. So then remember with GCF, you have one set of parentheses, and you need to carefully divide by what your GCF is. Remember, factoring is dividing into smaller parts. So the first term, 2x squared divided by 2x is x. Bring down the minus. 4x divided by 2x, the x's cancel, it'll just be 2. So I have factored, now I can get my answers. So my first factor is 2x. Do not cross it off. It has an x with it. So we must write 2x equals 0. That means x must be 0. Pretty obvious. 2 times 0 is 0. And then the second one, second factor, x minus 2 equals 0. Obviously that x must be 2. Next, letter D. Letter D is not set equal to 0. So I need to subtract 25. This does not have a GCF. What type of factoring is this? This is difference of squares. Difference of squares. If you forgot how to do difference of squares, you need to pause this video right now and go refresh on it. You could either watch one of my old videos, or if you actually want to be much quicker with it, go up on YouTube quick and type in difference of squares. So signs for difference of squares are always plus, minus, and the square root of 25 is 5. So now we have our two factors. Let's get our two answers. The first guy, x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5, so -5 is one of our answers. And the second one, x minus 5 equals 0. Add 5, and you have your second answer. Letter E is not set equal to 0. I'm going to add 36. Careful with my placement. It's going to be at the end. The third term, it's a constant. The C term, if you will. All right, no GCF here. I do have easy trinomial. My signs are minus, minus. Two numbers that multiply to get 36 and add up to 15. Pause this to think about it now. Your numbers should be 3 and 12. So I have my factors. Now I'm going to go and get my two answers. So my first factor, x minus 3 equals 0. That's got to be 3. My second factor, x minus 12 equals 0. Add 12 and you got 12. 3 and 12. Letter F. It's set equal to 0. This is actually a really easy problem. There's no GCF. This actually should have been probably letter A. It's that easy. It's just an easy trinomial with all pluses. Two numbers that multiply to get 10 and add up to get 7. What are they? 2 and 5. So now I can go ahead and set my factors equal to 0 and solve. X plus 2 is 0, so x must be -2. And x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5, -5. So you guys can notice this problem. Once you get more practice, and you're going to fly through these problems. That problem letter F could literally be a problem that you get done in under 30 seconds. Okay, letter G. It is set equal to 0. GCF, yes, absolutely. What's the GCF here? Should be 3x. And then divide by 3x carefully. 6x squared over 3x is 2x. Plus 3x divided by 3x is 3. The x's cancel. So now we're going to throw in a new wrinkle here. We're still going to follow our same steps with our factors. So our first factor, 3x, equals 0. Obviously, x has got to be 0. Next, 2x plus 3 equals 0. So we need to solve this. This is the new wrinkle here is this is just going to take 2 steps to solve. So the first thing I would do is subtract 3. And then you would divide by 2. And you can call it -1.5 or -1.5. Heck, you could even leave it as -3/2. I'm cool with improper fractions as long as they're reduced. My preference, though, is a mixed number like -1.5 or a decimal like -1.5. Okay, letter H. First thing I notice, not set equal to 0. I need to subtract 35x. So what is this? Or I should say, is this a GCF? Yes. GCF is 7x. Then I'm going to divide it by 7x. So that'll be 1x. That'll divide to have x's cancel 5. Okay, so now I can get my 2 answers. My first factor, 7x, equal to 0. So x must be 0. If you guys haven't noticed by now, anytime that your GCF has an x, that GCF's going to have 0. Going to be 0. All right, and then the second one, x minus 5 equals 0, so x must be 5. Letter I is not set equal to 0. Now the 3x squared is on the left. I'm going to keep that there as a positive. We always want our x squared term as a positive, so I'm going to keep it to the left as a positive. I'm going to subtract 6x. I'm going to subtract 24. I'm going to do my check now. Do I have a GCF? Yeah, I do. 3. So when I take out a 3, notice I do not have an x with it. So when I pull out a 3, we're not going to worry about it anymore in the problem. The 24 does not have an x, so there's not an x in the GCF. So divide everything by 3. Okay, so now we can actually factor this again. This trinomial in the parentheses is an easy trinomial. So we're going to go to 2 binomials. My signs, if I look at the c term, it's a minus. Whenever you have this, again, you always look at the c first. When your c is a minus, it's plus minus. So then you got to run the numbers in your head. What numbers multiply to get 8 and subtract to get -2? Well, that would be 2 and 4. And the 4 would have to get the minus. The 2 would have to get the plus. Again, my check is 2 times -4 is -8, but plus 2 minus 4, I have no idea what I just did there. Plus 2 minus 4 is -2, which satisfies the b term. So that was just a little recap from the other day. So I'm going to now get my two answers, now that it's factored. So x plus 2 equals 0. That answer is -2. And x minus 4 equals 0. So x has got to be 4. All right, got a few more. This is just some extra practice right now. Letter J, got to set it equal to 0, so we're going to subtract x. Do I have a GCF? Yes, x. And then divide by x, that'll be 5x minus 1. So now to get my two answers, my first one, x equals 0. And my second one is going to be a two-stepper. I'm going to first add 1 and then divide by 5. And I'm just going to call it 1/5. Okay, letter K. I'm going to up the difficulty a bit. Yeah, it's set equal to 0. Does it have a GCF? No, it does not. 3 and 4 and 15, absolutely not. This is actually a hard trinomial, so we got a little bit of work to do. I'm going to use the A times C method that I taught you the other day. If you did not do that, you better go back in your Ed puzzle and watch it now. So anyway, A times C, that's -45. I need two numbers that multiply to get, let me write down my factors of 45. 2, 3, 15, 4, 5, and 9, 6, 7, 8. All right, so I got to be careful here. The C term is a negative, so my signs do have to be 1 plus 1 minus. So now I want to look at my B term. It's a -4. I need to make one of these a plus, one of these a minus to make -4. Look at the third pair right here. If I make the 5 a plus and the 9 a minus, they add up to -4. So the B, my original BX term, the -4x, will be split up into plus 5x and minus 9x. Bring down your other terms, your first and last terms. And then you're going to do, remember it's called, or what we're going to do is set up our two groups of parentheses, and we're going to GCF each of them. So your GCF of your first group is x. Then we divide by x to have 3x plus 5. Your GCF of your second group, be careful there. Since you're starting with a negative, remember your GCF's got to have a negative. And then GCF of 9 and 15 is 3. And then carefully divide by -3, which does change the signs. It'll be 3x plus 5. And remember that check. We said if your parentheses match, they do here. We're doing this right because in both of my parentheses, I have 3x plus 5. So now I am going to write my new binomials, my factors here. In my one set of parentheses, I have 3x plus 5. And remember what goes in the other one, it's your two GCFs. So your GCFs, Joe, you can stay there just one more minute.
We're going to be out here in like 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Just
Hold on. I'm literally recording. Sorry about that, guys.
Just come down when you're done.
I got a guy renovating downstairs, so he had to ask a question, and I'm not editing videos. So your GCFs get put together in the other set of parentheses, x minus 3. So now you need to go through and get your answers for each of them. Your first one, you say 3x plus 5 equals 0. So you're going to solve that, subtract 5, then divide by 3, and we're going to call this negative. That'll be 1 2/3. And your second one is x minus 3 equals 0. So that would have to be 3. All right, guys, looking at the time, there's only one example left. I'm not too worried about it. The you-dos, that's just extra practice if we had class time. But looking at my time, I am worried about this video being too long. So I'm going to stop here. You guys got in everything you needed to today. You got the procedures down. You got the practice down. Hopefully you put forth a good effort.